So let's get started. So before we jump into that, we'll just go through the implementation real quick and what have we done before and where we are right now from video 1 to video 9. It's been a long journey. So let's go through all the classes real quick right here. And once we're done with that, we can then move on to testing the application. So here we have our application or properties, which basically has your data source, your MySQL stuff, and also your mail properties, your email ID, your password, etc. etc. Next is your email request, which basically is the payload or the info data that your client inputs and sends as a body in a post request. Who gets a response back in terms of an email response body? And yeah, so one thing which we want to talk about here is that this was not there before, and make sure to add this in your code and the setter and getter as well. So this basically makes sure that all the non-null values are also included inside the JSON when it gives an output, and the setters and getters are basically setters and getters for the class. Next comes in the email job, which basically is the heart of our application. It uses mail sender and mail properties to then create the message and then send it. And we also handle job execution context and the job data map in this set of lines of code, and make sure that the appropriate email is sent to the appropriate person. And finally, we have our controller. So if you go inside web, we have a controller which handles everything for us. So it handles scheduling of emails, it handles building the job detail, the job trigger, and also scheduling the job for us, and does some basic validations. Uses these helper functions here, build job detail and build trigger, to make sure that we are up to date with our stuff. Okay, so let's test it now. So let's run it first, and we'll be using Postman to test the application. It's an API client, so make sure that you have Postman installed inside your laptop or a computer, or if not, then any other API client works. So we have our application up and running. Let's open Postman. And so first what we're going to do is we are going to do a get request on /get. If you can see here, we had made a simple get mapping just to make sure that the API is working. So my bad. Go to Postman, get this up and do a send, do a get request, and we'll just make sure that we get back the pass. So our REST API is working, and now let's do it. Let's do a post and schedule an actual email. So here I'm scheduling the email to myself, and the subject is one lead coder day keeps unemployment away. Pretty important stuff. And the body is that you either reverse a linked list or you just get out. And date time is in this format, so it's the date and then T, then hours, minutes, seconds, and the time zone is Asia, Kolkata. And yeah. So first, before we actually do a successful post, let's actually mess with it a little. So what if I put this as 06 and this as 29? This is basically before time, so this should give us an error. So as you can see, we have our error message that the date time must be after current time. So our validations are working pretty fine. And all I have to do now is make it as 07 and send our request. And we get back the output as true. This is the job ID, job group, which we had used to schedule the email, and that's it. That's how we actually run our application, and we have scheduled an email to be sent to me next month this time. So now, if you are still not convinced of whether the email was sent or not, what you can do is use a debug mode inside Quad. So let's actually do that right now. So let's stop the application and run it again using debug mode, and then you can see every single state happening step by step. You can see what your variables are, what's happening behind the scenes, etc. etc. So let's actually do that right now and see how a debugger is used inside IntelliJ. So let's say I want to keep track of everything that happens. So I want to keep track of which request is coming in and where is it going out, all of that. So what I can do is I can create breakpoints. So if you click on a line here, it will stop the execution of the program for that line. So let's say I do it here. So everything before this, all the variables, I can see them inside the debug console, and we'll see that in a minute. So I want to stop it here and see what is inside my email request. I want to see what's inside date time. That way I can see it here. and then I want to see the response, right? So I want to put a breakpoint here and see the email response that I get back. Now what you have to do is run it using the debug mode, and this takes up comparatively a bit more time to start when you compare it to the run button, because it IntelliJ does something behind the scene for it to make sure that the breakpoints are being actually hit. Now once this is done, should be over anytime now, and yep, now what we have to do is go to Postman and do a send here, basically trigger our process. And once we do that, you'll see that we go inside the debugger console. So give it a minute, and yep, so now we are inside the debugger console, and here we can see all the variables before line 40. So this is the current object of the email controller. We have our email request. So this is what we had sent using Postman, was this. We can see exactly how we want to see. We can see the date, we can see the time zone, Asia, Kolkata, rules, all of that stuff. Very, very interesting, very nice stuff to see. We can see our date time and also the scheduler which we had, declared here. And let's do a resume program, and then we get the email response. So now we have an email response, and we can see what is happening behind the scenes in the email response. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. A pretty interesting way of seeing how the program works behind the scenes. And now you can actually move around and see how each and every state changes when it goes through the program. You can see the scheduler, you can see what's happening behind the scenes inside the scheduler as well. You can see the job factory, you can see the job data map, you can see the log errors, job manager, all sorts of good stuff. And yeah, so that was it for this video. We tested our application, we made sure that it is working, and we also saw how it is working behind the scenes using debugger. And now the final part is basically exploring Quartz a bit deeper and seeing what other options we have with Quartz and what the kind of power it provides us. So that is what this video is going to be about. We'll be going deep inside the Quartz database and seeing what has happened behind the scenes when we actually go through the line 43, which is schedule a job. So as you can see, we did not write any SQL code, any Hibernate code, we didn't do anything other than making those tables for Quartz in the beginning. That's all we did. All we did was run a SQL file which you could get off the internet for Quartz, and then all the tables for us were created. All the constraints, the foreign keys, primary keys, all of that was handmade for us. And Quartz was handling that behind the scenes where we were running our API, basically this particular line of code. So let's see what's happening behind the scenes and what actually, our database, how our database looks like. So go here, and these are all the tables that we have. So we have everything here given by Quartz. So we have the blob triggers, calendars, cron, etc., etc. So to be honest, I haven't used most of it. So I haven't used Quartz logs. I have never come across a situation where I had to see what is inside them, or it was always empty. Paused is when you basically pause your scheduling. So there is an option in a scheduler where you can actually pause and resume jobs. So if you have a job which is pending to be run or triggered, then you can just pause it, and then whenever you want, you can then resume the job as well. So this is what the pause trigger groups is for, where you can just see which jobs were paused. Fire trigger is basically which job was triggered and has already run at least once. Job details gives you all the information about the jobs. So let's actually see it in action now. So yeah, we are inside a console for this, and let's just do a select star from job details and see what we get back here. So if you can see on the console, we get an output. So I've actually scheduled a bunch of jobs, so ignore that part, and let's just see what is happening here. What are the columns? So we have the scheduler name, which is the Quartz scheduler. We have the job name, which is basically a unique ID. The group is email jobs, which we had hard coded inside it. Description was also hard coded. The class is the job from which it will run. So it's email job. The crux of our is durable is basically whether it's in the database or not. It is not concurrent. We haven't updated the data yet. There hasn't been any request recovery, and the job data is basically enigmatic. So there's the way of seeing that, but we know what the job data looks like. So this is basically what we see inside Quartz job details. And now let's actually see it for other tables as well. So if we do a select star from Quartz, and if I want to see all the triggers, so let's see all the triggers that we have inside our application. So we have 3 triggers right now. Again, scheduler name, trigger group, email triggers, the job name. Previous fire time, has it been fired before? -1 means no. The state of the trigger, so all the triggers are waiting. The priority is top, which is automatically given by Quartz by its own priority algorithm. We can change that, but we haven't yet. The name of the calendar, so if you're using a Gregorian calendar or something else, then it shows up here. The job data, which we give via the trigger, and the misfire instruction, basically what to do when there's a misfire. So these are all the columns we have for Quartz triggers. Similarly, you can see it for other bunch of stuff. So blob triggers, calendars, fired, log, etc., etc. So some of them are mostly empty. So let's find out which ones. As you can see, this one is basically empty because there are no multiple instances for our Quartz scheduler, so that we can handle them. So if you're working on a microservice, then you will have this handy. If you have multiple instances running for Quartz at the same time, then you can check in the interval what was happening, which scheduler has a last check-in time, etc., etc. So this is what happens behind the scenes in the databases. And if you would want to learn more about it, then you can go inside the description below and then see how much deeper you can go with Quartz schedulers and the databases. So this is how we implemented a Quartz application which can be used to schedule email. And we did not write a single SQL command. We just ran a SQL script and it did all the work for us. And using this one line of code, which is scheduler.schedule job, we are able to populate multiple tables. We're able to schedule jobs and triggers. So this is how we actually saw how powerful Quartz is when it comes to scheduling jobs. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next playlist. Good night.